Hello, college baseball fans. I am not Michael Patrick Rooney. I am, in fact, Joe Healy sitting in for Michael Patrick Rooney, and this is going to be about 30 minutes of purgatory here that we call the D1Baseball Podcast. We're going to preview Week 9 around college baseball. We're going to do the best we can without Runes. I feel like this has a chance to get a little sideways on us because we don't have the guardrails that Runes provides, but that's okay. I think there's a lot of you watching and listening who might kind of like it when things get a little sideways on us. So we'll see what happens. Gentlemen, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling great. I mean, it's just an honor to be called up to the big show, right? I've got my Crichton Leprechaun shirt on. I mean, I am ready to party tonight.
Is that what you got on?
Yeah. Let's see here.
It's casting a shadow.
There we go. There it is. Look that up. Well, if you don't know what that is,
get that. I need that shirt.
Go to YouTube. Yeah.
Oh man.
I don't know what's better, that one or the Sweet Jones video. You know what I'm talking about?
They're both good. Yeah.
Giving the listeners some assignments when they finish listening to our podcast.
Yeah,
go look up some stuff.
We have homework now. Yeah.
That's right,
Joe.
That's right.
I'm doing well. I'm also doing better than Missouri.
It's a tough scene, man. It's really a tough scene. I will be boots on the ground in Columbia, Missouri next weekend. I am ostensibly visiting my family in Missouri, but I'm going to sneak over there to Taylor Stadium and we'll see. I'm going to be.
Who do they have?
Oklahoma.
Oh, and so, a little Kyson Witherspoon action.
That's right. So yeah, looking forward to that. So I will have a first-hand report of the Missouri Tigers next week. Anyway, let's get to Week 9. Before we jump into anything specific, I have to remind you that this episode of the D1 Baseball Podcast and every episode this season of the D1 Baseball Podcast is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Get ready for a new season of fishing fun with Academy Sports and Outdoors and reel in the best gear at low prices every day. Plus, Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time, like free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup on academy.com orders. All right, folks. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go conference by conference of the Power Four, and I'm going to give you a few series to choose from. We're just going to kind of bat them around a little bit, and then we're going to, at the end, we'll do a grab bag of the other leagues because we don't want to give them short shrift. I would hate to live up to the expectation of Brenton Dufresne here, who says, let's get ready for 45 minutes of SEC talk and 6 minutes for everybody else. Yay.
I think we should start with the Big 12 just for Brenton.
You know what? Let's do it. Between that and Chad Erickson saying, let's go Wildcats.
I like that. I do like the Wildcat energy. That was a big series win over the weekend for them. I liked Arizona's energy in that one. So yeah, let's do it.
It's a wide open league. So let's jump
really
into that. Kendall, I'll let you get it started. Here's the 3 series that I'm looking at, and feel free to go off the board if there's another one that's on your mind. But Kansas at TCU, interesting. That one's in Fort Worth. Oklahoma State and Arizona. Speaking of the Wildcats, Oklahoma State, are they on the comeback trail? We'll have to see. And then Arizona State and Cincinnati. Don't look now. We kind of wrote off Cincinnati earlier this season. But they are starting to win some games again and get moving in the right direction. This series would obviously big for that. So those are 3 I'm looking at. But Kendall, one of those or something else, what's got your eye?
Yeah, for me, it's Kansas and TCU. I mean, who would have thought that, coming into the season that Kansas, TCU would to be expected a little bit, but who would have thought we'd be talking about Kansas as of today? I'll defer to the Nerdmaster General over here, but as of today, Kansas would be a really good spot for regional hosts. It's a top 16, top 17 RPI team that's leading leading a power conference, one of the top 3 or 4 conferences in the country. And, Dan Fitzgerald's done a really, really nice job with this team. I think when you look at these guys overall, Michael Brooks, who, was formerly the UCF kickback, had a really nice weekend last weekend down against his old team. He's hitting 375 in conference. Brady Ballinger has been a wrecking ball in conference play with 5 home runs already. And then, the big story has been Dom, Bagley, who, was the preseason Big 12 pitcher of the year coming into the season, kind of got off to a little bit of a rough start, but has kind of gotten in their groove as conference play, has begun in the Big 12. So, Bagley kind of back to his old self. Then for TCU, I kind of feel like they calibrated and they kind of got right when Caden Parker came back. It seems like all their pitching pieces are starting to come together a little better. And then Sawyer Strohsnyder, the talented freshman for them. We've talked so much about, to make Brenton happy. We've talked so much about, Derek Curiel, Freilich, Rembert, guys like that in the SEC. But how about Sawyer Strohsnyder out of the Big 12? I mean, he's been phenomenal. He's a power hitter. He's got speed. Los was telling me a couple weeks ago at U of H that he might be the most tooled up player they've had at TCU. And if you go look at the list of guys they've had at TCU, that's pretty good company to be in.
No, agreed. My big thing this weekend, I'll go real quick and then Mark, we'll go to you. My big thing this weekend with all of these series, my kind of through line with all of them is I just kind of desperately want someone to take this league by the horns, if you will. No pun intended, because the Longhorns didn't even think about that. But no, so I just want someone to kind of take charge here. And I think there's opportunity here, given that KU and TCU are the top two teams in the standings. Arizona's right there. They've got an opportunity against Oklahoma State. So I think we might get that a little bit this weekend, especially if KU wins that series. So kind of regardless of the series, I just am kind of interested in seeing who can actually emerge here from this group that feels kind of all pretty similar. But what do you got, Mark?
I'll go to Arizona. I was really impressed with the series win over Arizona State. I mean, that's that was a monster series to go in. The rivalry, every moving leagues, all of these different variables, and they go in and take the series. They got Oklahoma State, and Pokes showed a little life. What does this mean? We all feel like they're talented. Is this, can they take the momentum from last week and continue that ascension and pull back into the race? I think that for me is what I'm looking for out of the Big 12 this week. The other thing I would point out, Aaron Walton, a Samford transfer, and me and Samford, I'll watch all of these Samford guys go and dominate at their next step. He's at Arizona and having a big year. So I'm really interested just to see how this league, to Joe's point, is somebody gonna figure it out and move to the top, or are we gonna have this, hey, somebody's good this week and then they get pulled back to the pack the following week? Is that going to be the trend? And then you're going to get to the end, and do you have a host, or are there a lot of teams, that are kind of high 2 seeds, right? And I feel like that's still in play right now.
Yeah, what was it, Mark? Was it 2 years ago that TCU was kind of in that situation? They won the league, but the RPI was at a position that they weren't really hostable. Obviously Arizona last year in the Pac-12 had an iffy RPI, but they hosted. But the other two things I'm kind of keeping an eye on this weekend, and one of the big keys for the Wildcats has been the return of Easton Breifogel. I think he came back in the midweek game. That's really big for them, obviously, as they have Brendan Summerhill still out for a couple more weeks. But the two things I'm kind of keeping an eye on, guys, this weekend is West Virginia at Houston. That's a club that was right on the cusp of the top 25 last week. Steve Sabins has done a really nice job with them this year. Again, one of those teams sitting at 31 right now could get in the hosting discussion. And guys, the other team just – since Mark is here, to make a lot of this postseason related, another team I've got my eye on that I'm, that I have an upset watch a little bit is Baylor. Baylor's RPI is dead down to 55. They're at Texas Tech, which you don't typically call Texas Tech an RPI killer, but I mean, Texas Tech's RPI is in triple digits. That's a rivalry series. That's a scary one for Mitch Thompson and the Bears. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Baylor's at this point, you just have to win games and don't worry about the RPI. Win as many as you can. Your schedule's your schedule. But definitely those road wins can really accumulate and boost your RPI.
Yep.
Yeah, Baylor not winning that series last weekend at home against Houston, if they miss the tournament by just inches, metaphorically speaking, that is going to be, I think, a series they look back on that they're going to want to have back.
No question.
I agree.
Let's move to the ACC. A little bit of a washout. Supposed to be Wake UNC tonight. Shout out to our buddy Aaron Fitt, who was robbed of that game tonight. So
he's
that's
standing in the parking lot, banging on the gate.
I think he's hey. I heard he's like John Cusack. He has the boom box above his head. Let them play.
Yeah, it's playing. It's playing "Caroline in My Mind" by James Taylor on the boom box.
There's a 100% chance, by the way, that Fitzy is a James Taylor fan.
Oh, 100% chance.
No question about it.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, look at this.
It's making an appearance.
Look at this. That is a wiggly dog, Mark.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He's really
got some fluff on. That is Nova, folks. That's the great Nova Etheridge.
Does that mean that you're a Villanova homer, Mark?
It is not, but he's way cuter than I am. And frankly, both of you.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's exactly right. Yeah, actually, that's our Q rating just went way up whenever Nova was on the screen. ACC, Wake and UNC, Louisville and NC State, FSU, Virginia Tech, I think, are three series that stand out most to me. Let's take it in reverse order this time. Mark, what do you got on the ACC?
I'll go Florida State, Virginia Tech. I think for me, after Florida State dropped this series, I mean, they've lost, 3 in a row now? They lost the last 2 against Wake. They lost to Florida in midweek. It's a team that we all feel like has Omaha potential, great rotation. They've had some injuries and kind of fighting through it, both positionally and with their pitching depth. I want to see what they do on the road because their RPI is not great. It's in the 20s right now. This is an opportunity to get a road series at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's playing well. I think they've won won their last 3 series in a row after kind of a rocky start. I feel like that this is a big series for both teams. But if you're Florida State, you've got a chance to kind of get off the snide after a rocky couple of games, but also help your RPI and get right back into the teens where we feel like they're going to be and potentially higher as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Like I think for me that's interesting too, because it's just a matter of Florida State kind of, I don't want to say got exposed because I think those things just kind of happen, but didn't have a good weekend last weekend. And there are a few places I'd less want to go on the road to play at when I'm kind of scuffling than Blacksburg. Like it's a tough place to get to. It's a tough place to play. It's, all of the things apply here. It always seems like it's kind of damp and a little chilly. It's just, can just be a tough place to play. So that's, and especially when that team is playing well in Blacksburg.
Yeah, and the Hokies are coming off a big win over Troy in midweek. I mean, that was a ranked win. You got them in your place, and you really shut down a pretty good lineup.
Yeah, they really played well. So, yeah, they're taking some momentum in. I'll give a note here for Louisville and NC State. I just kind of need – I need to – I'll put my hand up and say I need to maybe pay a little more attention to Louisville and figure out what they are there. I watched the midweek game against Kentucky, and I liked the fight they showed there. I mean, Kentucky obviously has some flaws as a team, especially in the bullpen. So there's that. But I like the fight they showed to come back and win that game after Kentucky kind of landed a haymaker late in the game there. So that was a good win, obviously. And then, against NC State, a team that we kind of wrote off early in the season. That's kind of been a theme of the ACC is teams we gave up on and now have kind of like, okay, well, maybe we need to reevaluate, right? Like Virginia, NC State, Duke, Carolina's gone through a skid. Like this is just kind of a cycle we're in right now with the ACC. So I need to really kind of hone in on Louisville. And then I am curious to see if with this being in Raleigh at home, is this just another step forward for NC State? Kendall, what you got?
Yeah, Wake Forest and North Carolina, obviously a big series. I think when you look at Wake and, last weekend and the job that, Cam Nelson and Dalton Wentz and, Matt Scannell and guys like that did against Florida State's pitching staff, that's pretty incredible. I mean, 29 runs in 2 games against the Seminoles. I want to say they touched up Joey Vellini for, was it 7 runs in 2 innings, I believe? I mean, it was something incredibly impressive.
Yep.
Yeah, and so Wake Forest, and then North Carolina, with Knapp and DeCaro and those guys. I mean, clearly just an elite pitching team. But the question will be, offensively, can they match up with Wake Forest this weekend? The other one, real quick, Joe, that I've got my eye on, and again, this is kind of for postseason reasons, is Stanford and Clemson. I mean, Stanford was a team, guys, that after the first couple of weeks of the ACC, it's kind of like they're the cat's meow. I mean, they take a series at North Carolina. They sweep Duke at home. They've since lost 9 straight conference games. And I think if you're Stanford and you've got, postseason aspirations, I think you've got to go on the road and at least get 1 this weekend. Ideally, you would love to get 2. But, if you're 5-13 after a Clemson weekend, that's a pretty difficult road to, traverse, in my opinion.
Yeah. The RPI is still in pretty good shape, but they've got to win games. I mean, that's the bottom line. They kind of like, you look at Florida, even if they sweep Missouri, they're still in this huge hole they got to dig out of. And that's where Stanford is if they don't start winning games quickly.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Speaking of SEC, we'll move on to that in just a second. So hold on to your seat, Brenton. We're getting to it.
Brenton did say he was kidding. So just
I know. Yes, we're just giving Brenton a hard time. We do appreciate folks who
Man.
folks who come
That's
in here.
great. I like the passion.
Yeah, we appreciate the back and forth. Like, so yes, we kid because we care. But before we get to that, I have to give another shout out to one of our sponsors, Tecovas Boots. Whether it's the leather in your glove or your tailgating chairs, baseball people know that quality matters. That's why we love Tecovas Boots. Born in Texas, just like Kendall and I, handcrafted with over 200 meticulous steps and comfortable from day one, they're perfect for wherever the college baseball season takes you. From road trips to rivalry games, post-game celebrations, or just everyday wear, Tecovas boots are made to go the distance. Find your perfect pair today at Tecovas. Aaron could use a pair of Tecovas boots sloshing around in the wet out there. So
yeah. He looks
all right,
like a good guy. Don't you think? Don't you agree? I mean, Aaron.
We're trying to get fit. I told Fit I'll do it. Of course, I'll look natural with cowboy boots or cowboy hat.
You can pull it off.
Yeah, but like I'm trying to get him first day Omaha, opening day College World Series, to roll in a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, preferably some like Cayman boots or something.
Yeah,
some really
like
exotic animal.
Yeah, like the reptile skin. Yeah.
You're very exotic for Fitzy. Do what, Mark?
He'd probably wear board shorts with him or something. It just wouldn't matter.
Yeah,
he's just catching strays over here,
like the naked cowboy in New York. He just had the boots with no pants. And all right, let's talk SEC. Obviously, another big weekend in the league when you have as many ranked teams as the SEC does. Like, there's just you got to keep your head on a swivel. Arkansas at Georgia. That's where I'm going to be this weekend. Very much looking forward to that. LSU Auburn, Tennessee Ole Miss, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Obviously, there are others, but those are kind of the four that caught my eye most. Kendall, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with what got your attention?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to go with Liam Doyle and Andrew Fisher returning to Oxford. I can't imagine their fans are going to be real happy to see them. So I just think the emotion of that, and what's really interesting about this series is I actually feel like Ole Miss would have a better shot to win this series had Tennessee won the A&M series. But the worst thing that could have happened for Ole Miss is for Tennessee to get smoked at Lindsey Nelson, because there is no way those guys are showing up overconfident this weekend in Oxford. And I just think Tennessee, when it is focused, when it is clicking on all cylinders, is the best team in college baseball. I really do. I mean, Arkansas certainly has an argument, but I think when they are doing everything right, they're very tough to beat. And they've kind of proven, for the most part, that they can win all these games like Gavin Keelan. And so I just, I look at this series with a lot of intrigue. I think for Ole Miss, the big key to the weekend, they've proven they can score runs. I think the big key will be, can their bullpen, which has been a little topsy-turvy at times, like can their bullpen shut down Tennessee's offense late in games? That is a dangerous spot for me, is Ole Miss's bullpen against Tennessee's offense.
Yeah, on that, yeah. I mean, I said it on radio, one of my weekly radio hits today, just that it's interesting to compare a pitching staff like Ole Miss to a pitching staff like Georgia. Like, they're opposite in almost every way, and I don't necessarily mean that as good or bad. I think it depends on what you value. So Ole Miss, you look at the rotation and their top bullpen guys, and you're just kind of like,
Yeah.
But like, they're mostly getting it done, right? And so they're doing enough. And then you look at Georgia, and then you're like, wow, look at all this stuff. But then you're like, but the results really aren't there. So I do think there's value. Ole Miss knows who its guys are and just keeps running them out there. And they're old and they're experienced and they just know what they're doing. Go ahead, Kendall.
No, I was going to say, I don't want to cut Mark off, but just while I'm thinking about it, I was really actually impressed with Ole Miss last weekend against Kentucky. I think we talked about it in the group chat that was on the edge of your seat type of series, like going back and forth and back and forth. And I just don't think that's a series that Ole Miss wins at all last year. Yeah. It's a series like that on the road. They do not win that series last year. And so I thought that series actually told me a little something about them, that, against a team where it's getting chippy and things like that they kind of finished the job. That was a really good development, I think, for the Rebels.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll put a word in here real quick for Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. There's a little bit of the Spider-Man meme series where it's like both teams feel pretty good on the mound, don't know what you're going to get offensively from game to game. I think the real hinge point in this series, though, is I've probably been underestimating Vanderbilt's bullpen, which has been really strong. All of the guys who were a big part of it last year have been a big part again. Cyber, Kranzler, I'm forgetting some, but add to that Sawyer Hawks, add to that Tommy O'Rourke, who are both throwing the ball really well. Suddenly you've got a really good Miller Green was the name I was forgetting. All of a sudden you look around and you've got a really good unit there. So I think that could be the difference maker here, is that Vanderbilt has more options that it really trusts right now, I think, than Oklahoma. Series being in Norman's a wrinkle, though, too. So that feels like a coin flip series for me.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, for me, the series is LSU at Auburn. I was in Auburn last week, saw them take the series from Alabama. Their basketball team was playing in the Final Four, so the environment, was not what it will be with LSU in the building. It's the renovated ballpark. It holds a lot more people. It's a different place to play than it has been in prior years. And then you add in the intrigue of Auburn's ace is Samuel Dutton. He was at LSU for the last years. Didn't really pitch a whole lot, pitched some. Now he's come to Auburn. He's just a different pitcher. He's changed the way he pitches. He changed his grip on his curveball, was one of the things he told me. It's instead of a harder curveball, it's now like a low 70s thing. It's almost like a changeup, man. It comes in, but it's in the zone, so you can't take it. And that really gave Alabama fits. I'm just fascinated to see what LSU does with that. Meanwhile, on the LSU side, you got Cade Anderson, who was the star of last week with his incredible complete game performance against Oklahoma. And those guys are going to go against each other, right? And then you throw in Chris Stanfield, who was at Auburn in the last 2 years, who's now LSU center fielder and is on a heater right now. I mean, you've got all these different storylines. I think that's going to be fascinating. Auburn's going to be really good at home. They haven't lost a home series. In fact, they've won 3 out of 4. They lost at Georgia and didn't have a really good weekend. But otherwise, they've been good. And I feel like this is a team that's ascending, a lot of young players, but LSU's just so talented, man. So it's kind of one of these things where, part of me thinks, okay, Auburn at home, they got a shot to win this because everybody's going to lose series. But then LSU, you're just playing so well. You're pitching so well. Your bullpen is just incredible. Casey Evans and Zach Cowan. I mean, it's one of these that I really hate to have to pick, right? Because they're both – you kind of want to pick them both at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn's offense, specifically against Ianson and Shores is going to be fascinating when you look at, just the sheer power they have at the top. And then, the other thing, too –
They don't strike out. They foul everything off. They fight pitches. They're a team that really makes your pitchers work.
Yeah, and the other, kind of the 3 guys I'm looking forward to this weekend is, we talked so much about, we talked earlier about Slaughter Strohsnyder at TCU as a freshman. How about Derek Curiel at LSU, Chase Fralick at Auburn, and Chris Rembert at Auburn? Oh, those are 3 really good freshmen in a big-time moment.
He might be the best of all of them. Yeah, he might be the best of all of them by the time we're done.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. And Joe, real quick, going back to Vandy just for a second, I know he had area on your highway to Hoover earlier this week. They brought Connor Fennell out of the bullpen against Florida. Is that to close it? Is that are they sticking with that moving forward?
Well, I think it's a little bit like how Texas has used Ruger Riojas and Dylan Volantis in the past, where it's like, if we need him in the first 2 games, we're not going to hesitate. But if we haven't used him by game 3, they'll start him. Like, I get the sense that's kind of.
I was just curious. I figured too, but I was just curious.
Yeah, because it's still TBA this
weekend. Last week, I really did, because anytime you can make sure you win the series, and you got a guy, and Fennell is so hard the first time you see him, so hard to pick up. I mean, it was almost an automatic 3 outs.
I believe Aria said on the podcast, and I trust her on this because she does her homework. Like, his strikeout rate is higher than Liam Doyle's, and like, different sample size, right? Like, we're not saying he's better than Liam Doyle, but just like
hashtag ball Twitter over here.
For what he's doing, like, he's dominating. It's first time through.
Pick up. Yeah, the first time you see him, it's awful, right? So I could see him becoming a quote closer or stopper, where you put him in and you let him just kind of finish the game, put him in the midway through the 7th, something like that. So he only has to go through and face 7 to 9 hitters. Oh, he's going to be brutal.
Yeah. The other series I got my eye on this weekend is Mississippi State, Alabama. I think that's a little bit of a scary series for Bama because I think we're all three really big believers in Bama, but if you look at Mississippi State and the games they've lost this year, I mean they've been competitive. It's not like they've been some team that's just getting run out of the building. They've been pretty competitive. They hit the ball consistently against LSU a couple weeks ago, and just didn't win the games. But I mean they were competitive against LSU, so I actually think that's a little bit of a scary series for Bama. I think they're going to need to play a really good brand of baseball, I think, to take 2 out of 3 in that one.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
Word on Bama. Yeah, I mean, the top of their roster is just phenomenal. Their top 1 to 5, 6 guys. It's just after that, what are they going to get, right? Or is that going to be good enough? And I feel like what they've been able to do all year is just, hey, if the game's close at the end, they get the clutch hit, they get the clutch out, they make the clutch defensive play.
Yeah.
And honestly, Mississippi State hasn't. And they've lost a lot of close games. So that to me will be the key. Can Mississippi State kind of flip that around? And baseball is a game of odds. Sometimes things kind of tilt the other way. Is it this week, or will Alabama continue to make the big plays late?
Quickly on a couple SEC games going on. Kendall mentioned Missouri at the top. Florida beating the brakes off of Missouri, I assume, is still happening. A&M just got a grand slam, by the way. So they took a 6-3 lead over South Carolina into the third. A lot of baseball left in that one. A lot of weird stuff has already happened in that game. Yeah. So buckle up for that. That has just a wonky 4-hour game.
Don't go anywhere.
There's no question. The other, we didn't even talk about it, guys, but Texas going to Kentucky. That Kentucky's scary, I think, just because after losing that series last weekend, Minge and company are going to have a little bit of urgency this weekend. I think Max Wiener and that pitching staff, they're going to have to command it. I think as we saw with UK against A&M a couple of weeks ago, if you do not command against Kentucky, they can do some different things to kind of wear you out. And so I can promise you, Max is preaching that going into the weekend. It's like we've got to have good command.
Yeah, I have thoughts there. One of the things about Kentucky is, Minge, if you talk to him more than 3 minutes, he's going to tell you we are a whatever it takes offense. Okay. And that's what they're going to do. And this week, what you want to do against Texas is you want to get into the bullpen and you want to make them stretch it out, right? You want to make them use more than those 5-6 guys who have just been incredible so far. Mm-hmm. So I expect you're going to see a lot of driving up pitch counts, fouling pitches off, trying to get them to go deep. It's easier said than done because it's really good stuff. But that's going to be the MO for Kentucky, and that's how they equalize things, right? Playing at home is one thing, but the other part of that is trying to get deeper into that pen and get as many at bats as you can off 7 through 9 on the pitching staff versus 1 through 6.
Yeah, it's such a good point. Yeah, because Texas, their pitching stat sheet just looks a little weird. It's not nearly as long as everyone else's. They know who their guys are and they're running through them. Real quick on the Big Ten, not a great weekend in the Big Ten. I'll say this: if you just showed me this slate before the season, I'd have been like, man, that's a really good weekend. But results have kind of made it so that it's not necessarily. We've got Oregon at Maryland, and Maryland's off to a 3-9 start this season in Big Ten play. Not what we expected there. Nebraska's at Iowa. Iowa's held up its end of the bargain. Nebraska's 4-8 in the league, so that's not as good as we thought it would be. Indiana and Illinois is still interesting. They're both over 500 in Big Ten play, but Indiana's maybe not been quite as good as we thought or at least as consistent as we thought they'd be. So I've got 2 series that I'm interested in here, one of which involves 2 teams that 3 years ago I could not have imagined being Big Ten teams. That's Washington and UCLA. And then the other is one half of that, USC and Penn State this weekend. I'll put a quick word in for USC and Penn State. USC, and you guys will have this conversation on the Nerdcast coming up this next week. USC has a sneaky, interesting case if it can just win enough Big Ten games, because it has some nice non-conference wins. It played a relatively good non-conference schedule. It's just going to be a matter of this eternal question on this stuff where it's like, if the RPI is good and they've got some good non-conference wins, but you finish 5th in the Big Ten, what does that get you, right? And it feels like that could be their fate. But this weekend, it's an opportunity for them to win a coin flip series in the Big Ten and maybe change that. So, Mark, let's go to you. I think we started with Kendall last time, so we'll go to you here with Big Ten thoughts.
Yeah, it's USC Penn State for me. 2 9-6 teams. They're right in that range where you're trying to determine the pecking order. The Big Ten does have some RPI issues. I mean, other than UCLA, everybody's kind of not where they want to be. And I do feel like USC gets the opportunity to go to Penn State. That can help your RPI with those road wins. But Penn State, they just need to collect wins. And beating a team like USC and grabbing their opponents coming in, that's what they need right now. A guy for Penn State, I mean, Paxton Kling, obviously, he was at LSU for a couple of years, and he always teased us with his potential, and now he's playing every day, and he's really turned it on, man. He's hitting 348, 11 bombs, 36 RBI. He's got 9 stolen bases too. I mean, he's really kind of figured it out. And then USC, Ethan Hedges hitting 415 already with 11 homers, 39 ribbies. I mean, 9 stolen bases. I mean, you've got some really good players at the top of that lineup, or at the top of the offense, we'll call it, and trying to figure out who's going to make the big plays in order to lift their team. This is a crucial series, and I really feel like the winner of this one is going to move ahead in the pecking order as we head to the stretch run.
Yep. Yeah, I think with those two teams too, Penn State's an interesting one because we kind of all saw them as a sleeper, if you will, in the Big Ten, but so many of us kind of identified them as that. It feels like maybe the expectations got away from where the reality was. So I'll just point to my own self. Like, I'm probably grading them on too harsh a curve when I see them at 9-6, and they're like, we need to have to use the context of this is Penn State baseball, and they're clearly building something here. But Kendall, what do you have from a Big Ten standpoint? You're muted, so make sure. There you go. All right.
Yeah, you're good. Nebraska, Iowa was really interesting to me. I mean, Nebraska was a team that was a preseason top 25 type of club coming into the season. Obviously, things haven't gone as planned, but I mean, if you look at the last couple of weekends, they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde kind of team. I mean, they win a series over Oregon State at home. OSU didn't have Nelson Kelho, but I mean, still, that's a really good series win for them. They get a series win over Rutgers, but they can't seem to win the midweek game. So, Nebraska on the weekend has actually played pretty well over the last couple of weeks. I think Iowa, we just talked about the pecking order and things like that. This is, for Iowa, this is a big series to kind of continue being in that top 2 in the Big Ten. I mean, if you look at Iowa overall, they've been awesome in conference play, but they have an RPI of 82. So there's very little margin for error. They've got a lot of work to do. But if you win a lot of games and stay at the very top of your conference, that gives you a chance. Cade Obermiller, a talented junior for the Hawkeyes, has been awesome so far this year. I mean, 205 OBA, 40 strikeouts, 7 walks, and 30 in the third. And then Reese Moore has been very good for them offensively. So the Hawkeyes, red hot, getting a Nebraska team. It is a rivalry. So getting a Nebraska team in a rivalry series at home, this is a big one too.
Yeah, and Nebraska is not untalented, right? Like, there's a reason we ranked them, that they've just kind of been flat. Quickly on Washington and UCLA, this is kind of Washington's shot if it's going to be serious about being a postseason team. RPI, for whatever that's worth on April 10th, is 105, not to be a postseason team, but a series win here on the road against a top 15 RPI team would go a long way toward fixing that pretty quick. And regardless of how this ends up, I think Washington does deserve a lot of credit because this might seem like kind of damning with faint praise, but I didn't think a ton of that roster going into the season. And they're winning games. They're doing a nice job with the roster they've got. They're sitting at 8-4 in the Big Ten. And while, yes, maybe you could look askance at the Big Ten about that and say, like, should that team really be 8-4? Like, well, they don't have to apologize to us. So they're doing a really nice job with a team that I had very modest expectations for. And if they win this series, I do think we have to start to have a different conversation about them. That being said, I don't expect them to win it, but if they do, it'll be a different conversation for you guys on the Nerdcast this coming week. All right, we'll wrap with this. I'm going to read off a list of kind of everything else, some other bits and bobs. You guys can pick one of those. You can go off the board with something else that's got your eye. This is really your opportunity to really go crazy. You could talk about impressionist paintings if you'd like. You could talk about 90s.
That's what I had in mind.
Yeah.
Never do that again.
Yeah, it was thought.
I know this will shock you guys, but I think I've been in an art gallery twice in my life.
Honestly, I would have taken the under. So like that,
Okay.
impressed that you've been twice, you know?
And it's the same art gallery, the one in near Med Center in Houston, which is
Oh,
a really good art gallery if you're into art.
True. I like it. Yeah, exactly. All right. So here's some others here. Out in the Big West, Hawaii, Cal Poly. Cal
Yeah.
Poly, obviously one heck of a season. That's going to be a fun series. Western Kentucky and Liberty. Liberty quietly making a move now in CUSA. Western Kentucky coming off that big series against DBU. So that's a big one in CUSA. Kent State and Miami, Ohio. Kent is 10-2 in the league. Miami, Ohio, 12-3 in the league. Quick shout out. This is not going to be a marquee series, but a quick shout out for Central Connecticut State, 14-1 in the NEC. They're playing the Maryland Eastern Shore Hawks, who I have in the stock market game. So go Hawks to get a win there and help me out there. In the OVC, Southern Indiana, pardon me, at 7-2, taking on Tennessee Tech at 6-3. Matt Braga's got their team playing pretty well, and Southern Indiana has only been in Division 2 or Division 1 2 years, and they're playing pretty well. And speaking of teams transitioning, St. Thomas is once again leading the Summit League. That is a program that desperately needs to get eligible so they can actually get something for their victories, because right now they're just beating up on the league and have nothing to show for it because of Joe's opinion, a silly rule. So they are taking on North Dakota State. So that's just kind of a basic menu of the things out there. So We'll go to Kendall first. What do you got kind of in the rest of the country?
Yeah, you know what? I will go with Western Kentucky at Liberty. As we mentioned, some of these postseason cases and things like that. Western Kentucky gets the big series win over DBU last weekend. RPS sitting at 42. Liberty, a team with an RPS sitting at 51. So this could be one of those classic situations to where a series like this, as we mentioned earlier about Baylor and Houston, this could be one of those series that kind of puts one team over the other in the pecking order at the end of the season. So, I really have a lot of respect for the job that Mark Reardon's done at Western Kentucky. I mean, to be sitting at 28-5, 6-3 there is pretty incredible. I think we were talking about this on the group chat the other day, but that is a guy, by the way, who has won at a high level every place he's been in his career. I can't imagine he would not be a hot commodity this summer. But real quick on WKU, keep an eye on Ryan Weideman this weekend. I hate to pump up a fabulous fit dog this weekend, but he's hitting 452, 6 home runs, 40 RBIs, and by the way, a 1.266 OPS. He is an elite player and also an elite prospect.
Yeah, having a heck of a year. Mark, what do you got?
I'm going to go to the Sun Belt, where
right.
there are 4 teams tied at 8-4 atop the league standings, and 2 of them play each other. And it's Coastal Carolina and Georgia State. The other 2 are Southern Miss and Troy. And if you're Georgia State, this is an opportunity. You've got Coastal this week, and then you go to Southern Miss next week. Do you belong in this top tier, or are you at that next level below? And granted, it's hard, right? These are really good teams that you're trying to compete with, but they've got a shot to prove that, hey, we're ready to take that next step. If you're Coastal, this is your hardest series left, at least based on how we view it today. This is a chance. If you can have some success this weekend, you can go and soar. And even though you lost to Troy earlier in the year, you may have a chance to win the league. You have the best RPI in the league. The hosting opportunity is there for Coastal, but it all starts this weekend.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Look at the remaining schedule, what they have left. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, as someone who could very easily get down to Conway for a Sunbelt series, imagine my disappointment when I saw that home schedule. So, yeah, no disrespect to the rest of the Sunbelt, but it is a little rough. Coastal does have a really interesting resume, by the way, just like 2 wins over K-State, speaking, in Conway early this season. Went to Jacksonville, got a win over NC State, has plays all of the usual suspects in the midweek, in the Carolinas. So it is kind of an interesting resume. They are in good shape to at least be in the mix to host if they can keep it on the rails here. So good stuff there. All right, gentlemen, that is going to do it for this edition of the D1 Baseball Podcast. Thank you guys for pinch hitting here. It was a little bit tough week scheduling wise. So Mark did a fabulous job, came in just like those Auburn hitters, fouled off a bunch of pitches, saw a lot, really worked the starter. And then, I'd say that you went the other way into the gap.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's an upgrade over Fit.
Well, who isn't? No, we love Healy. I didn't bring the passion that he does. I didn't get on a rant and just absolutely crush some unsuspecting team.
It's always like the Summit League. He's always choosing these people who can't defend themselves.
Oral Roberts, yeah,
that's true. That's such a good point.
Let it off of Oral Bob, man. Come on.
He's a bully. He's a bad pitcher bully.
Yeah, he's a bad guy. That's what really what it boils down to. At first, I thought Mark said who is, and at first I thought he said who is that, which would have been kind of funny. Like who is Aaron? You know what? Since we picked on him earlier, you know what? I'm going to pause and not actually close this out because we picked on him earlier. We're going to allow Britton Dufresne to get his question in here. Forgot who it was, but an interview was mentioned. I think with Jay Ullman, but not sure. Jay Ullman, the head coach at Tulane. That the AAC could be a 2 or 3 bid league. Could that be due to how good the top of the ACC is or subpar ECU? Well, I'll get it started while you guys give it. Like, I have a hard time seeing it just because of where the RPIs are in this league. But what I will say is that the league is more wide open, right? On like, it's not just ECU's league this year. UTSA is winning it. They have, they could be an at-large team. So if someone else maybe wins the tourney, that's maybe how you get a second bid. But I have a hard time, and Mark, we'll start with you since you're kind of the expert on this stuff.
Yeah, I'll let Mark take this question. He's an master.
Yeah. So I think UTSA and USF are both in position from an RPI standpoint that they could be at-large teams, and you're not going to count East Carolina out. So there are those teams, and then you could have an automatic bid, come from the field, right? There are a lot of different teams that get hot for a few days. So absolutely, this could be a 2-bid league, possibly 3 if it fell just right. But I think most likely, I think you could be looking at a 2-bid AAC this year.
Yeah,
strong at the top. I like UTSA's team a lot. So, I think
I'll see South Florida this weekend. So,
yeah, I'm interested to see what your report is on that because, like, they are, that's another roster I saw in the fall, and I was like, and they just like overachieved what the hell they could do, and I shouldn't be surprised because
shocking that Mitch Hannes would overachieve.
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks, that is actually going to do it now for the D1 Baseball Podcast. Thank you to Academy Sports and Outdoors and Tecovas Boots for sponsoring this and every episode of the D1 Baseball Podcast, as well as Highway to Hoover, which Mark and I will have a new episode of at the end of this weekend. Thank you again to Mark and Kendall for joining me, and thank you, the listeners, for listening. We'll talk to y'all soon.